Put your hands where I can see them." The shout tore through the quiet street like a gunshot. Marcus Lee stopped in his tracks, one foot still in a puddle that rippled under the red and blue lights. He turned slowly, confused, a small grocery bag in his hand. "Officer, is there a problem?" he asked calmly. The cop's flashlight hit him in the face. "Don't move. Step away from the bag." Marcus blinked, raising his hands. "I just came back from the base. I live 2 blocks down." "Shut up," Officer Bradley barked, moving closer. "We got a call about a suspicious man walking around here. You match the description." Marcus frowned slightly. "Description? What description, sir?" "You tell me," Bradley said with a smirk. "Dark clothes, dark skin. Sounds about right." The words hit harder than the cold wind. Marcus took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Sir, I'm in uniform." "Look," he said, pointing slightly at the army patch on his shoulder. "I said, don't move." Bradley shouted again, hand flying to his holster. Marcus froze, every instinct screaming to stay still. He had faced bombs, bullets, and chaos overseas, but nothing felt more dangerous than this moment in his own hometown. "I served this country," Marcus said softly. "You don't need to turn around," Bradley ordered, cutting him off. "Hands on the hood." Marcus hesitated, then obeyed. The metal of the police car was cold against his palms. The flashlight beams swept over him, then suddenly thud. A hard shove pinned him down. "What are you doing?" Marcus gasped. "You think wearing that uniform gives you a free pass?" Bradley hissed. "I've seen your type before. Always playing the hero." "I'm not playing anything," Marcus said, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "I just came home tonight. That's it." But before he could say another word, the first blow came fast and heavy, a baton against his back. He stumbled, catching himself on the car. Another strike followed, sharper this time. "Stop," Marcus yelled. "I didn't do anything." Bradley's voice was like ice. "You people never do, huh?" Marcus's vision blurred for a moment. Pain burned through his body, but he refused to fight back. He knew how this story usually ended, and he wasn't going to give anyone that excuse. "Sir, please," he whispered, breathless. "I'm not a threat." But Bradley wasn't listening. He hit him again, until Marcus fell to one knee. The grocery bag spilled open, oranges rolling into the street, one of them bursting under the police boot. Then, for a moment, everything went silent. Only the soft sound of Marcus's breathing filled the air. He looked up, not in fear, but with quiet dignity. His torn uniform glimmered faintly in the streetlight, and just beneath the fabric, something shone, a silver metal catching the light. Bradley didn't notice. He just wiped his sweat, muttering, "Should have stayed where you belong." A voice broke through the dark. "Sir, I recorded everything." Bradley turned sharply. Across the street, a teenage girl stood on the sidewalk, phone in hand. Her face pale, but steady. Marcus slowly lifted his head toward her. Their eyes met, and for the first time that night, his heart steadied. He wasn't alone anymore. The officer froze. Somewhere in the distance, another siren wailed, and the night that began with power was about to turn into truth. "Delete that video." Officer Bradley's voice thundered across the street. The teenage girl's hands trembled, but she didn't lower her phone. I'm not deleting it," she said, her voice small but firm. "You hurt him for no reason." Bradley took a step toward her. "I said, give me the phone." Marcus, still on his knees, lifted his head. "Leave her alone," he said weakly. "She's just a kid." The officer glared down at him. "Stay out of this." Marcus coughed, tasting blood. "You already beat me. Now you're gonna bully her too." For a moment, Bradley hesitated. His radio crackled, the dispatcher's voice breaking through. "Unit 4, do you copy? What's your status?" He grabbed the radio quickly. "All clear," he said, voice sharp, just handling a suspect. But deep down, he felt something twisting, a small, cold fear. The girl, still shaking, took a few steps back. People saw you, she whispered. You can't hide this. Bradley's jaw tightened. You think anyone's gonna believe some random kid over me? She didn't answer. She just ran. Marcus watched her disappear around the corner, her phone light fading into the night. Bradley turned back to him. You're lucky I'm not arresting you, he muttered. Get up. Go home before I change my mind. Marcus struggled to his feet, his body aching. Arrest me, he said quietly, for walking home in my own neighborhood. The officer didn't reply. He just walked back to his car, slammed the door, and drove off. His tires hissing on the wet road, Marcus stood there for a long time, breathing hard. The city around him felt heavier than any battlefield he'd ever known. He looked down. The Medal of Valor was scratched, but still gleamed faintly in the dim light. He brushed off the dirt and whispered, Dad, I kept my promise. I didn't lose control. He slowly made his way home. His mother, Evelyn Lee, opened the door the moment she saw him limping. Marcus, Lord have mercy. What happened? She cried, pulling him inside. It's nothing, Ma, he murmured. Just a bad night. Don't lie to me, she said, touching his bruised face with trembling hands. Who did this? He hesitated, not wanting to worry her. A cop. Ma thought I was a criminal. Her eyes filled with tears. You fight for this country, and this is how they thank you. Marcus sighed. It's okay. Someone saw it happen. A young girl recorded it. Maybe. He stopped mid-sentence, doubt creeping in. What if the cop found her? What if the video never came out? But that night, miles away, in a small apartment, the teenage girl, Zoe Carter, sat on her bed, watching the footage again. Her heart raced with every frame. Marcus raising his hands, the blows, the blood. Her mother peeked into the room. Zoe, what are you doing up so late? Mom, Zoe whispered, a police officer beat a soldier tonight. I saw it. I recorded it. Her mother's face went pale. You need to delete that before it gets you in trouble. I can't, Zoe said, eyes locked on the screen. He didn't do anything wrong. Her mom sat beside her, torn between fear and pride. If you're going to share it, make sure people know the truth. Zoe nodded, her hand hovering over the upload button. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady, like the sky itself was crying. Zoe took a deep breath, heart pounding, and whispered, The world needs to see this. She pressed upload. The video started to spread before the night was even over, and while Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling, unaware of what had begun, the city that had once been silent was about to wake up angry, divided, and ready to listen. By morning, the city was buzzing. The video had already hit 500,000 views overnight. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, every platform was flooded with the same clip. A white cop beating a black man in uniform. At first, people didn't know who the man was. The camera had caught only flashes of his face, the pain, the restraint, the quiet dignity. But then someone zoomed in, slowed down the frame, and noticed it, the silver medal pinned to his chest, glimmering beneath the streetlight. What's that medal? Someone tweeted. Another replied, looks like a military medal. Wait, is he a soldier? Within hours, the hashtags exploded. Hashtag justice for Marcus. Hashtag he served to hashtag the black soldier. Meanwhile, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, a cold towel pressed to his jaw. His mother scrolled through her phone, eyes wide. Marcus, she whispered, is this you? He looked up slowly. On her screen, he saw it, his own face, captured mid-blow. Zoe uploaded it. Marcus said softly, the girl from last night. Evelyn covered her mouth. Lord, people are talking about this everywhere. Marcus sighed. I didn't want this, Ma. I just wanted peace. She touched his hand. Sometimes, son, peace comes after the storm. Across town, Officer Bradley was staring at the same video on his phone in his patrol car. His face went pale. He scrolled through the comments. That man's a hero. Look at the patch. That's the 82nd Airborne Division. He's got the Medal of Valor. This cop beat a war hero. Bradley's stomach turned. No, that can't be. He searched Marcus's name. Within minutes, he found an old article. Sergeant Marcus Lee, honored for bravery, saved 6 fellow soldiers in Afghanistan. There it was, a smiling photo of Marcus, standing proud in his uniform, the same medal shining on his chest. Bradley's heart pounded. He threw his phone onto the seat and gripped the steering wheel. What have I done? He muttered. At the same time, reporters had already gathered outside Marcus's house. Cameras flashed. Microphones waved. Mr. Lee, how do you feel about what happened? Do you plan to press charges against the officer? Were you aware the video went viral? Marcus blinked under the pressure, overwhelmed. I'm not here to start a war, he said finally. I just want people to understand. Respect isn't something you earn from a uniform or a badge. It's something you show to every human being. The crowd fell silent for a moment. Those words, simple, honest, spread faster than the video itself. By evening, news channels across the country were covering the story. One anchor said, "The man in the viral video has been identified as Sergeant Marcus Lee, a decorated war hero. The officer involved has been placed under internal investigation." In a quiet apartment on the other side of town, Zoe sat with her mother, watching the same report. Her mom turned to her, tears in her eyes. "You did something brave, baby." Zoe smiled faintly. He deserved to be seen for who he really is. That night, as Marcus sat alone on the porch, his phone buzzed nonstop, texts, calls, messages from strangers thanking him for his service. He looked down at the medal again, brushing it gently with his thumb. All his life, that medal had represented courage in war. Tonight, it stood for something else, dignity and peace. He whispered to himself. Maybe this time, the fight isn't on the battlefield. It's right here at home. From the darkness of the street, a car slowed down. Inside it sat Officer Bradley, watching the house from a distance, his heart heavy with guilt. The next morning, the department called him in. "Officer Bradley," the chief said coldly, "we need to talk about that video." The next morning, the police station was chaos. Reporters crowded the entrance, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. "Officer Bradley, do you have anything to say about the viral video? Is it true you assaulted a decorated war hero? Are you going to resign?" Bradley pushed through the mob, jaw tight. "No comment," he muttered, trying to keep his head down. Inside, his captain was waiting, arms folded, face like stone. "Close the door," the captain said. Bradley obeyed. "Do you understand what you've done?" "I was doing my job," Bradley said defensively. He looked suspicious. The captain slammed a folder on the desk. "Suspicious? He's Sergeant Marcus Lee, a man who saved 6 soldiers in Afghanistan. The city is furious. The mayor's office called me twice this morning." Bradley's throat went dry. "Sir, I didn't know who he was. That's the point," the captain snapped. "You didn't care who he was. You just saw what you wanted to see." A long silence hung in the air. Then, quietly, the captain said, "You're suspended, effective immediately. Turn in your badge and weapon." Bradley hesitated, eyes burning. "Captain, please, I've been on the force 10 years. Then you should have known better," the captain interrupted. Bradley slowly placed his badge on the desk. As he walked out, the voices of reporters roared again, questions, accusations, flashes of light. But all he could hear was the echo of his own heartbeat. By afternoon, the city streets were filled with people, holding signs, chanting, marching. Justice for Marcus. Respect those who serve. No more silence. Zoe was there too, standing beside her mother. She held a small cardboard sign that read, "He fought for us. We must fight for him." News helicopters hovered above, capturing the crowd that stretched 4 blocks. Inside his home, Marcus stood at the window, watching the protest unfold. His mother joined him quietly. "They're standing up for you, baby," she said softly. Marcus shook his head. "No, Ma. They're standing up for what's right. This isn't about me. It's about every person who's ever been judged before being seen." That evening, Marcus received a call. "This is CNN. We'd like to have you on for an interview tonight." He hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." The reporter's voice was gentle. "Mr. Lee, the world needs to hear from you." Marcus glanced at his reflection in the mirror, the bruises still dark on his cheek. He nodded slowly. "All right, let's talk." Hours later, his face filled television screens across the country. He sat straight, calm but firm. "When that officer stopped me, I didn't see hate in his eyes," he said. "I saw fear. Fear of what he thought I was, not who I am. But fear can't keep deciding who's safe and who isn't." The interviewer asked, "Do you forgive him?" Marcus paused. The question hung heavy. Finally, he said, "I don't know if forgiveness is the right word, but I believe people can change if they face the truth." Those words struck deep. Across the nation, people felt it. The quiet power of a man who refused to answer hate with hate. Meanwhile, Bradley sat alone in his apartment, the TV flickering with Marcus's image. He stared at the screen, jaw tight, tears forming in his eyes. "I hurt that man," he whispered. "And he's still more decent than I'll ever be." He turned the TV off and sat in silence. Outside, thunder rolled, a storm breaking over the city, loud and unforgiving. But for the first time, Bradley didn't run from it. He let the sound wash over him, like a punishment, or maybe a beginning. 2 weeks passed. The protests had calmed, but the story still echoed through the city like an open wound. News vans had moved on to other headlines, but the faces of Marcus Lee and Officer Bradley still lingered in people's minds, a symbol of everything broken, and everything that could still be healed. One morning, Marcus received a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. The writing was shaky. "Mr. Lee, I don't expect forgiveness. I just need a chance to say I'm sorry." Bradley Marcus read it twice, his heart heavy. His mother watched quietly from across the kitchen. "You gonna meet him?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. He stared out the window, lost in thought. "I don't know, Ma. Part of me says no. The other part says maybe I should." She reached over, touching his hand gently. "You fought enemies overseas. Maybe this time, the battle is with yourself." 3 days later, they met at a small community center, neutral ground. No cameras, no reporters, just 2 men and the truth between them. Bradley arrived first, wearing plain clothes, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. He stood when Marcus walked in, unsure whether to speak or salute. "Sergeant Lee," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming." "Marcus," he replied, "just Marcus." They sat across from each other, silence stretching long and heavy. Bradley swallowed hard. "I've replayed that night 1,000 times. Every time I close my eyes, I see it again, me yelling, you standing there, not fighting back. And I hate myself for it." Marcus studied him, not angry now, just tired. "Why did you do it?" Bradley hesitated. "Because I was scared," he admitted. "Scared of losing control. Scared of the things I didn't understand. I saw a man on a dark street and made him a threat before he even spoke." Marcus leaned back, his voice calm. "You know what's crazy, Officer Bradley? I spent years fighting people who looked at me the same way, but they weren't supposed to be my own." Bradley lowered his head. "You're right. And I'm sorry, not just for what I did to you, but for every time I looked at someone and saw the wrong thing. A long pause followed. The hum of an air conditioner filled the space. Marcus spoke softly. You know, when I was on that ground, I wasn't thinking about the pain. I was thinking about my father. He was beaten by police when I was 10. He told me one day I'd face the same thing. I swore he was wrong. He smiled sadly. Turns out, he wasn't. Bradley looked up, eyes glistening. I can't change what I did, but I want to make it right somehow. Marcus studied him for a long moment. Then start with this, he said. Don't just apologize to me. Learn. Listen. Treat the next person like you see them, really see them. Bradley nodded slowly. I will. He hesitated, then said, They took my badge. I deserved that. But I want to use my voice now, to help fix what I helped break. Marcus stood up, extending his hand. Bradley looked at it, surprised. You're shaking my hand. Marcus gave a faint smile. You said you want to change. This is where it starts. Bradley took his hand, gripping it tight, not in pride, but in gratitude. When Marcus walked out of the community center, the sun was setting, gold light spilling across the street. He looked up and whispered, Maybe this time, Dad, I did the right thing. Behind him, Bradley watched quietly, the reflection of the metal still burning in his mind. The man he once broke had just helped him begin to rebuild. A month later, the city gathered for a veterans community event, a ceremony to honor soldiers who had served the nation with courage and sacrifice. The air was calm, the crowd respectful. American flags waved gently under the afternoon sun. Marcus Lee stood at the edge of the stage, straight-backed in his uniform. His bruises had healed, but the memory had not. Still, he carried himself with quiet strength, the kind that didn't need to shout to be heard. The mayor stepped up to the microphone. Today, she began, we honor those who have protected our freedom, but we also honor something deeper, the courage to forgive, to change, and to grow as a community. The audience clapped softly. Then she continued, There's one man here today who showed that true bravery doesn't only happen on the battlefield. She turned to Marcus. Sergeant Marcus Lee, would you please come forward? Marcus stepped up to the podium as the crowd rose in applause. Cameras flashed, but this time, it wasn't about scandal. It was about respect. He adjusted the microphone. Thank you, he said, voice steady. When I came home, I thought my fight was over. But I learned that sometimes, the hardest battles happen in places you thought were safe. He paused, looking at the faces in front of him. Soldiers, officers, civilians, children. I've seen what fear can do. It blinds people. It makes enemies out of neighbors. But I've also seen what truth can do. It opens eyes, even the ones that refused to see. The crowd listened in complete silence. Then Marcus's gaze shifted to the back of the room, and there stood Bradley, dressed not in uniform, but in a simple shirt, standing quietly beside a group of veterans. His hands were clasped, his eyes lowered. Marcus continued, There was a man who hurt me once, not because he was evil, but because he was lost. And when he finally saw me, truly saw me, I realized that maybe forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger. A murmur rippled through the audience. Bradley's eyes glistened. Marcus looked down at the Medal of Valor shining on his chest. He touched it gently, then said, This medal reminds me of courage under fire. But today, I learned that real courage isn't about standing against bullets. It's about standing for what's right, even when your voice shakes. He stepped back from the mic. The audience stood, applauding not just for a soldier, but for a man who had shown the world what humanity truly looked like. After the event, Bradley approached him slowly. Your speech? It hit me hard, he said quietly. I'm working with the department now, training new officers on bias awareness. It's not much, but it's a start. Marcus nodded. That's how change begins. One person, one choice at a time. Bradley hesitated, then said, "You saved 6 soldiers overseas. And now you saved one more, me." Marcus smiled faintly. Then it was worth it. They shook hands again, this time with genuine peace. No guilt, no pride. Just 2 men who had finally seen each other as human. As the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Marcus walked home through the same street where it all began. The lights flickered, the pavement still wet from a light rain. He looked around, the same world, but somehow different now. Softer, brighter. He whispered to himself, "You can't change the past, but you can make sure the future doesn't repeat it." And with that, the decorated soldier, the man who had been beaten, doubted, and misunderstood, kept walking, not as a victim or a hero, but as a reminder that forgiveness is the loudest form of victory.